My parents believed it was acceptable to strand me in a far-off state. "You're a liability," they spat before driving off. I was left with no one. 5 years later, when my father discovered my inheritance, it confirmed what I already knew. My parents never cared for me. They merely endured my presence, barely. I wasn't the favored child, the compliant son who obeyed without question. I challenged them, voiced my opinions, and refused to conform to their expectations. That made me a nuisance. And in my family, nuisances were discarded. At 16, as summer break ended, most kids dreaded returning to school, but I welcomed it. Anything was better than home. My parents had grown even more distant lately. My mother rarely spoke to me unless necessary, and my father only acknowledged me when I failed to meet his standards. I assumed it was just another one of their phases. I'd learned long ago not to ask questions. Then, one morning, my father ordered me to pack a small bag. "We're going on a trip," he said. "Just for a few days. Pack light." That should have been my first warning. My parents weren't spontaneous travelers, especially not with me in tow. But I didn't question it. I gathered a few clothes, my charger, and essentials. When I came downstairs, my bag was missing. "Mom already packed for you," my father said. That was my second red flag. We drove for hours, out of the city, through the suburbs, and into the countryside. The further we went, the more uneasy I felt. My parents didn't speak a word to me during the drive. My mother stared blankly out the window, while my father focused on the road as if eager to reach our destination. We finally stopped in a rundown rural town that seemed frozen in time. My father parked beside a dilapidated motel. The sign flickered weakly, and the walls were peeling. My mother stepped out first, followed by my father. I reached for my bag, but it wasn't there. "Where's my stuff?" I asked. My mother turned to me, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. "We left it at home. You won't need it." My father didn't even glance at me. "We're done, David. You're a liability. We won't tolerate you anymore." At first I thought I'd misheard. Then my mother added, "You refuse to listen. You don't want to be part of this family? Fine. Figure it out yourself." I laughed, waiting for the joke. They couldn't be serious. But they got back in the car. My father started the engine, my mother shut the door, and before I could react, they were gone. I chased after them. "Are you kidding me? You're really leaving me here?" My father didn't look back. I stood there, watching the dust settle, my heart racing. Part of me hoped this was a test, that they'd return in an hour, call it a lesson, and take me home. But deep down, I knew the truth. They were gone. I was alone. I checked my pockets, my phone, my wallet, and about $500 in my bank account. That was it. I had two choices: beg them to come back or survive on my own. I chose the latter. There was no point returning to people who didn't want me. If this was my reality, so be it. I'd make it work. I found a cheap hostel nearby and paid for a bunk. It wasn't much, just a shared room with strangers, but it was shelter. The next morning, I began job hunting. No diploma, no skills, but I was strong and willing to work. After countless rejections, I landed a job at a construction site. The pay was meager, the work grueling, but I took it. Days passed with no calls, no texts. I wasn't surprised. The first year was brutal. I worked construction by day, took odd jobs when I could, and barely scraped by. I lived in hostels, then a cramped apartment with 2 roommates who barely spoke English. Every dollar counted. I survived on rice and instant noodles, but never once considered calling my parents. By the second year, things improved. I learned electrical work on the job, and a foreman saw potential in me. He trained me, and soon I was wiring buildings. The pay increased, and I moved to a small studio in a rough neighborhood, but it was mine. By year 3, I earned my license and relocated to Los Angeles. My company paid well, and I started saving. I bought a decent car, rented a 1-bedroom apartment, and finally felt like I had a future. By year 4, I'd built a life entirely on my own. I traveled for work, took on big projects, and even considered starting my own business. The only family I stayed in touch with were my grandparents. My parents and sisters. Radio silence. And I preferred it that way. Then, in my 5th year away, everything changed. One evening, as I returned from work, my phone rang. It was my grandfather. His voice was heavy. "She's gone, David." I didn't need to ask who. "She passed in her sleep last night. No pain," he said. My grandmother, the only one who'd ever shown me kindness, was gone. "When's the funeral?" I asked. "In 2 days," he replied softly. "I know you're busy." I was. My company was mid-project, and taking time off was impossible. But the guilt gnawed at me. "I can't make it," I admitted. My grandfather didn't hesitate. She wouldn't want you to risk your job, David. She'd be proud of you. His words eased the guilt slightly. The funeral passed without me. That night, my grandfather called again. They were all there, he said, meaning my parents and sisters. Your father had things to say about you. I braced myself. He called you selfish, said you proved what a disappointment you are by not coming. My jaw clenched. Even after 5 years, my father couldn't resist belittling me. What did you say? I asked. My grandfather exhaled. I told him to shut up. I laughed. I'd never heard him stand up to my father before. I'm proud of you, David, he continued. You built a life for yourself. That's more than he ever did. His words meant more than he knew, but the surprises weren't over. A month later, a lawyer called. At first, I assumed it was a scam, until he mentioned my grandmother's name. She left you something, he said. My heart raced. What do you mean? An inheritance. She specified in her will that it goes to you. $500,000. I nearly dropped the phone. My grandparents weren't wealthy, or so I'd thought. She wanted you to have it, the lawyer added. Your grandfather can explain, but you'll need to sign paperwork. I was stunned. $500,000. But before I could process it, my phone rang again. Not my grandfather. My father. After 5 years of silence, I was suddenly no longer a liability. I let it ring. Ignoring them wouldn't make them disappear, but I wasn't rushing to answer either. The next morning, I checked my messages. Dad, we need to talk. You owe us. You're our son. I read it twice. Owe them? For what? For abandoning me? For treating me like trash? For leaving me with nothing and expecting me to fail? I wasn't engaging over text. If they wanted to talk, fine. But on my terms. 5 years had passed since I'd last seen my parents' house. Driving up that street felt like stepping into a nightmare. The same cracked driveway, peeling paint and neglected lawn, only worse. An unfamiliar beat-up sedan was parked outside. When I knocked, my mother answered after a minute. She looked older, wearier, but the moment she saw me, her face twisted into smug satisfaction, as if my arrival meant surrender. So you finally come to your senses, she said, stepping aside. I walked in, scanning the scene. The house was cramped. My older sister, Emily, sat on the couch, arms crossed, her husband beside her, glued to his phone. A toddler, their son, played with worn-out toys on the floor. My father stood in the kitchen doorway, glaring at me like an intruder. No one looked pleased to see me. I leaned against the wall. All right, I'm here. What do you want? My father scoffed. What do we want? David, you're our son. Family takes care of each other. I stared at him. Did that rule start after you abandoned me? Emily sighed dramatically. Are we really rehashing this? It was 5 years ago? I laughed coldly. You're right. 5 years of silence. No calls, no concern. But now that I have money, suddenly I'm family again. We raised you for 16 years, my father snapped. You think that was free? I blinked. You're saying I owe you for existing? He stepped forward. We provided for you. Fed you. Clothed you. Sent you to school. I didn't ask to be born, I shot back. You chose to be parents. You don't get to act like martyrs. My mother cut in. You wouldn't have survived without us. I shook my head. Let me get this straight. You treated me like a problem my whole life, dumped me with nothing, and now you think I owe you because I didn't fail? You wanted me to fail. My father's jaw tightened. Watch your tone. I laughed. Or what? You'll kick me out again? I gestured around the house. Oh wait, you can't. Because I don't need you anymore. Silence. Emily shifted uncomfortably. Even the toddler seemed to sense the tension. Then my father switched tactics. Look, you have more than enough now. We're struggling. Emily and her family live with us because they can't afford their own place. The right thing is to share. The right thing? I repeated. Like how you shared with me when I had nothing? Emily spoke up, her voice pleading. David, I have a kid. We can barely afford groceries. Are you really going to let your nephew suffer when you have $500,000? I turned to her. You didn't speak to me for 5 years. You cut me out just like they did. Now you expect me to care? She looked away, silent. My mother stepped in again, her tone threatening. If you don't help, we'll tell everyone what kind of son you are. Selfish, ungrateful, turning your back on family. I went still. Are you blackmailing me? She lifted her chin. People should know the truth. I stared at her, then smiled. Tell whoever you want, I don't care. My father's face darkened. You're selfish. No, I said calmly. I'm finally putting myself first. Something you never let me do. I turned to leave, then paused. Glancing around the shabby house, I added, You were right about one thing. Family does take care of each other. Hope flickered in their eyes, until I continued. I'm buying a house, a big one, somewhere nice. Grandpa's moving in with me. Emily, if you and your family want to come, you're welcome too. Emily's head snapped up in shock. My parents' faces twisted in confusion. But, you two? I looked directly at them. You can stay right here. My mother paled. You wouldn't. I smiled. I would, because I don't want you to be a liability. They sputtered, but I was already walking away. They'd made their choices. Now I was making mine. Stepping out of that house, I felt lighter than I had in years. For the first time, I was in control. I hadn't just shut them down, I'd given them a taste of their own medicine. They abandoned me when I needed them. Now, I was leaving them behind. But I wasn't done. That night, my grandfather called. I heard what you did, he said, amusement in his voice. Think I went too far? I asked. Not far enough, he replied. Your father's been ranting all night. He thought I'd take his side. And I told him I'm proud of you. His words warmed me. Then his tone shifted. But there's something you should know. My stomach tightened. What? He sighed. They're more desperate than you think. Your father made bad investments years ago. Lost everything. That's why Emily lives with them. They can't afford their own place. I frowned. So they need me? They're drowning, David. That's why they're manipulating you. I let that sink in. This wasn't just greed. It was survival. And I just slammed the door in their faces. Good. But then my grandfather added, There's more. Emily came to see me after you left. She was upset. Not just about the money, but everything. She regrets cutting you out. I hesitated. You believe her? I think she's realizing how much they've controlled her. And I think she's scared. That surprised me. The next night, Emily texted. Can we talk? I debated ignoring it, but decided to hear her out. We met at a diner. Without our parents, she seemed different, less defensive, more vulnerable. I deserved what you said, she admitted, stirring her coffee. I believed them when they said you were ungrateful. But now, I see they were manipulating me too. I studied her. Why tell me this now? She met my eyes. Because I don't want to be like them. I'm leaving. Me, Jake, and our son. I don't want them controlling my child's life. For the first time, I saw Emily wasn't just complicit, she was trapped too. Where will you go? I asked. She hesitated. I don't know yet. I took a deep breath. If you're serious about not being like them, come live with me. Her eyes widened. David, I meant what I said. I'm buying a house. Grandpa's moving in. You and your family are welcome, but not them. Tears welled in her eyes. Slowly, she nodded. I'd like that. The next day, Emily packed her things and left. When our parents realized she was gone, they erupted. My father called, screaming, You took her from us! No, I said calmly. You drove her away, just like you did me. My mother's voice crackled through the phone. You're destroying this family. No, I corrected. I'm saving the only parts worth saving. Then, for the last time, I hung up. 6 months later, I stood on the porch of my new home, watching the sunset. It was everything I'd never dared to dream of. A spacious house outside Los Angeles, room for all of us. Grandpa had the master suite. Emily, Jake, and their son had their own space upstairs. And for the first time, I had a home that felt like mine. It wasn't just a house, it was a fresh start. And the best part? My parents weren't in it. At first, I expected my father to show up, demanding another chance. He never did. Maybe his pride wouldn't let him. Emily told me they tried guilting her into returning. They keep calling, she admitted one evening on the porch. I raised an eyebrow. And? She grinned. I don't answer. For the first time in years, she looked happy. She'd found a job, her son was thriving, and she and Jake were planning a future free from our parents' control. As for Grandpa, he was thriving too. I should have moved years ago, he joked one afternoon, lounging in a lawn chair. He'd been hesitant at first, not wanting to burden me, but he wasn't. He was family, the only one who'd ever truly supported me. One night, an unknown number texted, Mom, we just want to talk. I stared at it, then deleted it. I wasn't angry anymore, but I wasn't letting them back in either. They'd made their choice. I'd made mine. I turned off my phone and went inside, to my real family, the one I'd chosen. Update. Life has been good, better than I imagined. Work is steady, Grandpa is happy, and Emily's family is thriving. It still feels surreal sometimes, going from nothing to this. A home, stability, a family that actually supports each other. I hadn't thought about my parents in months, until last week. An old neighbor called. "I don't know if you care," he said, "but your parents lost the house." I paused. The bank had foreclosed. They'd left town in a hurry. For a moment, I felt something. Not pity, just distant disbelief. 5 years ago, they'd thought they could discard me without consequences. Now, they had nothing. I told Emily later. She shook her head. They did this to themselves. She wasn't wrong. They'd had choices, just like I had. And now, they were living with the consequences. I didn't ask where they'd gone. I just said, "Thanks for letting me know," and moved on. If you enjoyed this story and felt the emotions behind it, don't forget to give it a like, share it with others, and subscribe to the channel for more real-life experiences and heartfelt stories. Your support means the world, and it helps us bring more content like this to you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.